Hi, I'm Chris from CodeReviewVideos.com, and in this video we're going to look at how we can handle user redirection after form login or user registration. Now this isn't specific to FOSUserBundle, it does actually just affect Symfony's form login in general. Some of these options are quite deceptive, and all the options, by the way, are coming from Symfony security configuration, so if you just Google for that and then you've got the full reference of what's going on here. The thing that we're interested in at the moment is the form login section and the various different parameters that we can pass in. And then, so like I say, some of them are a little bit confusing and they don't perhaps behave the way that you might kind of think they should, just without, so as soon as you read them, you might interpret them as working one way, but when you start working with them, they work slightly differently, but not that unintuitively, but as we'll see. So you can see default target path of /. Now you might think that that is just going to work in general, but it's not. That only happens if Symfony can't figure out where to send you. That's the route. Like I say route, meaning like ROUTE, that it's going to send you to, rather than the root of the domain, even though that is set to the root of the domain. A little bit confusing. Now this can be anything that you'd like. It can be like an absolute URL, so it could be like google.co.uk if you were so inclined, or any other path. It could be like a / some root on your some page / some page, whatever, or it could be a root name inside Symfony. So it could, if you look in your controller, you choose a root name, it could be one of those as well. So it's quite configurable, but as I say, it's not perhaps going to work the way that you expect unless you always set the default target path to true, in which case, regardless of where you try and log into, it's always going to forward you back. So let's have a look at that and see what happens. Hopefully it doesn't make a complete fool of me along the way. Anyway, we've got the site up and running. Just double check that it is definitely running. And so the idea is, and it is pretty much set up as you might expect, that say we tried to hit some secured page, we're not logged in, it asks us for our credentials, we type them in, and then once we've successfully logged in, we get directed to some secured page, which is exactly what we wanted. But as I say, we can take these values out of the config, we can pop them into our config and then muck about with this and make our users' life a little bit miserable by giving them not perhaps what they would expect. So our default target path, we'll just say, is going to be / for the purposes of demonstration, and we're going to say always use the target path of true, and then we might need to clear the cache. Let's just see how we get on. So we're logged out, we try to go to another secured page, we put in our details and then log in, and we didn't need to clear the cache, which is nice. Anyway, so we get redirected back, and as I say, this could be anything. It could be Google.co.uk. As I say, I don't know why you would want to do it like that, but you could. And then let's say alternative login. Even this time, we're not going to need to be logged in to access that page. Let's just go to login, code review test. The reason why is that's not a secured route, but there you go, you get directed to Google. As I say, I'm not entirely sure why, but the fact that you can do that is quite useful in some situations, I should imagine. Now, one additional setting that can be useful in here is to set use referrer to true, and the reason why to do that would be that if Symfony for whatever reason can't determine where to redirect you back to, and this is all worked out using your session on the server, if it can't figure out from the session where it should refer you back to, it can look at the http_referrer PHP value in your server's global variable. And another one worth knowing about is that you can set the failure path. So again, it's the failure path of the form login. You can pass in anything that you'd like there, and then when one of your users doesn't particularly have a good time logging in, you can send them off to somewhere ridiculous or somewhere more suitable, I suppose. I don't know, I don't really use these as options, honestly, but it's nice to know that they're available. There are a couple of other things that I want to cover as well just before we finish up in this video. So if we set this back to always use default as false, and then instead we switch across to use the alternative login if they don't have a default target path. And I'll show you a more realistic situation now. So this time we're swapping up to use a root name. And so if we go to a browser, incognito browser, and we hit the login form as though we've never been on the site, well, in this session at least, we've not been on the site, and we've just hit /login, where do we get redirected to? Well, we hope to get directed back to the alternative login page, but if you're currently logged in, So that did seem to work, which is nice. But if you were on the site already and you was trying to say access some secured page, remember we've set that value to false now. So this time we should get through to some secured page. Perhaps the more interesting situation of the two, and the one that you might forget about, is the registration path. So we're on the root page and we click register, and we just quickly fill this in. So a@a.com, username AAA, password AAA, Scouse user there. And so we log in, hilarious humor. We log in and we get the nice flash message. Congratulations, your account is now activated. But as you see, we're not really getting a page to get sent back to. So what if we was to be on a different page, say some secured page, and we wanted to get into that page, but we're not registered? This time when we register, so we're going to this time register as b@b.com, BBB, register. This time we should see a nice message that says back to the originating page. So if we click that, then we get sent back to some secured page. If we go back, all is good. And that's another nice little feature, one that you may not be aware of, as in one of them paths that you don't tend to think of, like a bit of an edge case path. It is nice to know that that will again work just out of the box. And this back to the originating page is just a translation that we can go in and edit as though we was doing our translations as in one of the previous videos. Where are we? So it would be in registration, where are we? Back to the originating page. So we could change that up or go into the template itself and muck about with that. And just to go through how that's working, if we go to vendor, friends of Symfony, user bundle, controller, and it would be in registration controller. So we've got the confirmed action, and that's going to register out this target URL. So we might need to look at the template as well. So let's just find that template. It would be in FOSUser views, registration confirmed, and then in here you can see if there's a target URL is set, then display that registration back message. So it's just handy to know about. That's where that's all coming from. And if the target URL is set, that's why when we logged in from the root, we didn't see that message.